In 2021, there was a moment when, for the first time in Britain, the country operated at 100% zero carbon. And while it's taken centuries to get there, is this about to become a new permanent reality? Clean Power 2030, a plan from government, based on advice from the National Energy System Operator, intends to make 95% clean energy. That's wind, solar, hydro, battery storage, and many supporting technologies commonplace in the next 5 years.
Historically, our interest in a consumer would stop at the meter, behind the meter, wasn't something we focused on. Now, we're much more interested in that.
We now have the technology. We have data, we have transparency, and now it's about bringing this together.
Electric vehicles alone could feed almost 40 gigawatts of power back into the grid, and that's equivalent of around 12 Hinkley Point C nuclear power stations. To unlock that potential, we need to understand how consumers actually behave.
This episode is all about flexible energy consumption, but from a different angle from what we've discussed in previous shows. We're focusing on people power, why choice, convenience, and cost from a consumer's perspective matter more than any time in the past 300 years.
I wish I could control when the sun shines, but I can't. So this transition really relies on the consumers being more flexible to mop up all that renewable energy when it's available and to say, oh, it's okay, we don't need it now when it's less available.
I'm Claire Nazir, and this is Inside Energy, a podcast from Ofgem exploring how the energy we use today has evolved and how it will change in the future. Let's start with a lofty ambition.
Great Britain started the Industrial Revolution. This is our time to make sure that the Green Revolution is just as successful as the Industrial Revolution.
This is Marzia Zafar, Deputy Director of Ofgem. She focuses on how the country runs on 95% clean energy over the next decade. That's going to involve flexibility in how we consume energy. But what do we mean by flexibility?
To date, customers are generally bill payers. They want to switch on their electricity whenever they want to and then pay their bill, and they want to have low bills. We want that as well. What we want also is to ask them that sometimes, if you can, maybe shift your consumption to another time for a lower price.
Historically, our interest in a consumer would kind of stop at the meter.
Ashley Malster is a senior flexibility strategist at Ofgem.
It would be like the energy gets supplied to your meter at the start of the outside of your home, and then what happens behind the meter, that's the phrase, behind the meter, kind of wasn't something we focused on, but now we're much more interested in that.
So why is flexibility important? Nina Klein works alongside Marzia and Ashley and is Ofgem's flexibility policy expert.
When we were relying on fossil fuels, you could tell a gas plant to turn up when there was more demand and tell it to turn down when there was less. But in this future now, where we're going to be having wind energy and solar energy, I wish I could control when the sun shines, but I can't. And the wind blows when it blows. And so because we're going to be transitioning to that much more variable energy system, we need that flexibility on the consumer side so that when it's really windy, all the EVs know and they start charging to use all that excess wind. When it's sunny during the day, your heat pump knows and it heats your home a bit earlier on during the day with that solar energy. And so this transition really relies on the consumers being more flexible to mop up all that renewable energy when it's available and to say, oh, it's okay, we don't need it now when it's less available.
It's important to note that we are not asking customers to now become energy advisors. We're not asking customers to wake up every morning and say, what should I be doing today when it comes to my electricity consumption? That's not something that's successful, that's sustainable. We don't want that. What we are looking for is an automated customer journey. The devices are out there. These are smart devices that networks can connect to, other technology companies can connect to, sending the right signals to the customer. We're going to go ahead and maximize the opportunities for the system, for you, and because of that, they get a lower bill. So the key to all of this is we need to make it super easy for the customer to want to participate. And to do that, we need to automate the customer journey And we need to introduce incentives for the customer to want to do this. So those three things are crucially important for consumer-led flexibility to become successful.
Marzia, Ashley and Nina are charged with the transition to Clean Power 2030. But delivering on the action plan requires orchestrating change across the entire energy system.
The journey to Clean Power 2030, in our view, starts with the network. Do we have the right network? Is it built enough to take on maximum amount of renewable energy? We also need to figure out what are the regulatory blockers for things like offshore wind, hydrogen, CCUS. How can we unblock these? And are they cost effective for the system? Because we want a system that's cost effective and clean power. We also need flexibility, both flexibility of supply and flexibility of demand. And when it comes to 2030, there's going to be a need for us to bring consumers along with us.
In the old days, the provision of energy was simply top-down. For flexibility to work, it has to be bottom-up. But that means listening first. Ashley Malster again.
And it's much more about understanding what consumers are going to do, and the whole area of behavioural science, for example, realising that consumers aren't rational economic agents like a perfect textbook would say. They think they're in normal human ways.
Time to study the data. This is Tom Luff from Energy Systems Catapult, an independent research organisation that helps energy innovators test and scale new technologies in real-world settings.
So we work with over 5,000 connected homes around the country, and we're gathering technical data and studying behaviours and motivations and everyday routines. We're using kind of diary studies, ethnography, in-home testing, and it lets us see energy use in real life. And so that's in sort of the kitchens, the living rooms, garages around the country. And that's where energy is actually used. And over 10 years, we built up a real body of insights.
It's called the Living Lab, and it has tapped into the behaviours and energy habits of households across all parts of the United Kingdom. And there are 3 key insights that are clearly evidenced across the country.
Life comes first, and technology has to fit around people and not the other way around. Solutions have got to be really simple and intuitive and reliable. Another thing is that incentives matter. If the gain doesn't feel big enough to people, then they won't bother. So rewards need to be tangible and meaningful. And a third point is you've got to design with people and not for them. So the best solutions are refined in real homes and grounded in everyday life. So I think, we'd say that flexibility in particular is only going to succeed if it can fit seamlessly into people's lives. And by testing and refining solutions in real homes, we're helping to bridge the gap between that sort of policy ambition and the practical adoption. And, ultimately, we hope by doing this, we can unlock the transformative potential of consumers to help the UK reach net zero.
Part of the approach that could make flexibility more accessible to families is by separating different aspects of energy use and pricing in the home. This is the secondary supplier model.
It means your home doesn't have to treat all energy the same. So you can split it into 2 streams, the flexible stuff, like charging your electric vehicle or running a battery, and the everyday essentials like cooking dinner or keeping the heating on. And that split really matters. It means that families don't have to reorganize their lives around energy pricing just to take part in flexibility. You can kind of carry on with your daily routines while the more flexible bits of your home kind of quietly adjust in the background. And where it gets even more exciting is that we would see that this approach could open the door for more specialist suppliers to come in. Instead of trying to run your whole home, they can just focus on the really flexible assets. So, for example, EV charging, that might be on a highly dynamic smart tariff that reacts to the grid, and that's what a specialist provider could provide. And the rest of your home could stay on a more stable, predictable plan that your more kind of trusted, reliable supplier that you're used to can deliver. So, in other words, you get the best of both worlds.
And that's good, because success requires public participation on an unprecedented scale. The National Energy System Operator, or NESO for short, projects to achieve 95% clean energy by 2030. Consumers will need to cumulatively provide 12 gigawatts of flex energy for the grid. That's equivalent to powering Denmark twice over, or providing electricity to every home from London to Edinburgh and back again. So no pressure, people. Yet this challenge sits within an even larger transformation. Marzia Zafar again.
In 2024, the peak demand for our energy system in Great Britain was around about 45 gigawatts. NESO have forecasted that by 2030, when we have to have clean power, the peak demand for electricity will be just over 60 gigawatts. And that's because of electric vehicles coming on the road, that's because of heat pump, that's because of data centers, and that's just the economy growing. So we're basically saying that 12 gigawatts is essentially 20% of that 60 gigawatt load.
So this is not just about changing how we generate electricity. It's fundamentally reimagining how we consume it. Being flexible with energy consumption means shifting demand to times when clean electricity is abundant and cheaper. And the potential is remarkable.
By about 2030, we should have about 4.5 million electric vehicles. So if we just take electric vehicles alone, many studies show that EVs can give us about 3 kilowatts of flexible load. That gives you about 13 gigawatts of renewable energy. However, not all of those electric vehicles will want to flex potentially, and we don't want to force flex on people. We want to be able to automate the system, automate the customer journey so that consumers are incentivized to flex.
So what could customer incentives to flex actually look like? Ashley Malster.
The real poster child for this is the EV and EV charger, but also storage heaters, smarter storage heaters, possibly smart heat pumps. So these devices that use a lot of energy can easily flex behind the scenes. And like Marzia mentioned, they're often going to be automated, so people don't have to think about it. Maybe they set some settings and then things just happen behind the scenes. So who has those devices? Is that only tech-savvy early adopters? Sure, they're some of the first people who have those things in the first place, but this is going to increase over time, and we're going to see this as being completely normal, certainly by the 2050s, but on the way there, we're going to have most people who have a car will have an electric vehicle. So being able to charge that off-peak or at the best time when there's lots of renewable energy on the system, that's just going to be the norm.
Not only will the electric vehicles be able to charge at an appropriate time, for true flexibility, they'll act as batteries too.
The idea is the vehicle, when it's plugged in, can also send energy back into the energy system, back down the grid, discharging it, acting as a mini generator, if you like. And with that, it means that the car battery can be charged and discharged as many times as is useful. Charge up at cheap times and then discharge back at the expensive times. You just have to sort of find a difference in price. Now, I know some people have been concerned about, if people are messing around with my battery, doesn't that harm the battery? They've actually done studies into this and apparently it can actually be helpful as long as it's done correctly within the right tolerances to actively use the battery. We're already hearing companies who are saying, we think the economics are looking right now, where we can offer a package upfront for free, as in no cost up front, because the savings you make each year on your energy bill are paying the financing costs we need to buy this thing in the first place. So this could be a kind of watch this space pivotal moment potentially.
So the potential to flex with an electric vehicle is huge. But for other electronic devices, flex could get tricky without support for consumers.
For example, white goods in your home, like a washing machine, you can flex the energy there. It'll be less energy than, say, for an EV, so the savings will be a bit less. And on the other side, the hassle might be a bit bigger. So whereas for your electric vehicle, you don't really mind when it's charged as long as it is charged on time. With something like your washing machine, well, you might care what time the washing machine's on, maybe an overnight. You don't want the clothes to get wet while you're waiting. So we don't expect everyone needs to flex in that sort of way. But if it works for people, then great. We don't need the consumers themselves to be embracing the flex markets in the sense of getting involved in all these different markets and the complexity. Other companies will be able to do that for them. They'll save some money on their tariff or get paid or optimizing their charging. And it's probably also worth flagging that even the people who are not flexing, they can still save.
So there's a big role to be played by the energy companies to design the products that will make it easy for us, but also for the regulator to make it easy for those companies too. Tom Luff from Energy Systems Catapult again.
Companies need to create the products and tariffs that people love. It's not just about acceptance, it's about getting stuff that people really want. The policy and regulation needs to be innovative and designed to unlock these solutions. Often the rules get made in a kind of vacuum and they're not tested in the real world. And so those market design questions, it's really important that we test those with consumers. If we can build tariffs and services and regulations that work technically, but also fit with what consumers need, then they're much more likely to be effective. We need to hammer home the point that people are diverse. We're all different. We've got widely varying needs and preferences, and that needs to be built into that kind of design process. I think flexibility has the potential to put consumers right at the heart of the energy system. And so if we can get it right, it could be really transformative for net zero. But, ultimately people will engage. Well, they'll only engage with what they truly value. So we need innovation from companies to create products and tariffs and services that people really want.
These are big changes at all levels, including for the grid. Here's Nina Klein.
This new energy system is a lot, isn't it? It's much more complicated. The energy is flowing in more different directions with more participants, and a lot of those participants are much smaller. So it really is a big change. But the way we operate our system here in the UK is by using markets. And so we use these prices to indicate where energy is needed or maybe where there's a constraint. And so it's not that there's kind of one person sitting at a computer screen trying to coordinate all of these millions of devices themselves. There's lots of different organisations that are specialists in the energy sector. So like your energy supplier or maybe an aggregator who see these price signals in the market and then respond to them by optimizing these portfolios of many, many devices. So hundreds of EVs and a few heat pumps, this kind of thing. And so controlling and optimizing those portfolios of many small devices is going to require new digital solutions and algorithms to optimize behind the scenes against all these prices. And we're also going to need to make sure we have technical standards so that these devices can kind of send and receive the right signals from these operators on our behalf. And so the distribution network, they've got their control rooms as well, and they're already using quite a lot of new and digital technologies that can manage these aggregated portfolios of devices. So they need to be able to clear their markets and send these dispatch signals to the right devices at the right place at the right time. It's maybe a little bit more of a challenge for the national system operator, the NESO, because they've been working for a long time balancing supply and demand. And I guess they're used to working with the 50 gas power plants on the system, or really even in the old days, it was the coal power plants, sending faxes and calling people up and, recognize their voice. And that's how you know who it is who's dispatching. Whereas now they need to be able to integrate with these hundreds of thousands of EVs and these aggregators and these suppliers. And so it is a real shift in a new digital mindset, both reforming the market so that these smaller devices are allowed in, but also having the technology behind the scenes to clear those markets, work with smaller assets and send those more electronic dispatch signals. So yeah, it's a really big change for the sector, but we're already mobilizing and already seeing a lot of that happening today.
So beneath all this technical complexity, the algorithms, the aggregators, the digital dispatch, lies something profound. Consumer flexibility could potentially be the cornerstone of Clean Power 2030 ambitions. And that matters because our energy story has always been one of transformation and consequence. The Industrial Revolution gave us prosperity, but left us dependent on coal mines and then oil and gas fields, vulnerable to whoever controlled them. Oil shocks, gas crises, geopolitical instability. We spent 2 centuries at the mercy of energy we couldn't control. But this time, with this revolution, the power is literally coming home.
We now have the technology. We have data, we have transparency, and now it's about bringing this together. And now it's about creating like a movement. We started the Industrial Revolution. Now we have an opportunity to really start the green revolution. We need people to believe in this. We need consumers to believe in this, to be behind this. I want marches out there. I want marches out there that says Clean Power 2030 is a good thing. That would be amazing for me.
And in the next episode, Ofgem CEO Jonathan Brearley looks at the transition beyond 2030, including how artificial intelligence will reshape our energy.
This new world we're going into, that challenge is more complex. And so AI definitely has a role to make sure that we can respond as quickly and efficiently as possible. And I do think we've got the technology there to help us make the progress we need to make.
Jonathan Brearley. And my thanks to Marzia, Zafar, Nina Klein, Ashley Malster from Ofgem, and Tom Luff from Energy Systems Catapult. I'm Claire Nazir. Inside Energy is a Bengo Media production for Ofgem.